Hi everyone, my name is Shalima and welcome back to my another session of learning English and improving your English speaking skills with me. So guys, I hope you all are doing well and excited to learn something new. So today, if you are someone who wants to speak English fluently, confidently and naturally, then this lesson is for you guys. Because today, I am going to teach you how to think in English, which is one of the most important steps to become fluent in English, right? So we all know how frustrating it can be when we have to stop and translate sentences from our native language into English. This is so frustrating. And guys, it shows us down, makes us feel less confident and often leads to mistakes, right? So guys, this is something which is like very frustrating, and if you could skip that translation process and just think in English from the start, right? So wouldn't this amazing? Well, here I am going to tell you that it's possible by following 4 simple stages, and you can train your brain to think directly in English, and trust me guys, this will make a huge difference in you, right? So before beginning, please subscribe to the channel so that you can get all the lessons that I post for you on this channel. Please like the video and share it with your friends, with your loved ones and with the person who really need this. So now let's get into today's lesson. How to think in English. So stage 1. Think in verbs. The power of action words. The first stage of learning to think in English is to focus on verbs. Guys, verbs are the action words in a sentence. They describe what's happening. Why do we start with verbs? Because action is all around us. And if we can think about what's happening in English, we can start forming sentences in our head, right? So let's take an example. Imagine guys, you are walking through, you're walking through New York City, okay, especially in Central Park, and you see people everywhere all engaged in different activities. What are they doing? Some people are running, right? And others are talking. You see a dog chasing a ball and someone is feeding pigeons, and these actions are describing using verbs run, talk, chase, feed. By observing the actions around you, you can start thinking about them in English. And this process of observing and identifying action is something that you can do everywhere guys, whether you are standing at a bus stop and or you are sitting in a cafe. There are always action happening around us. For example, on a by street, okay, you might see people walking quickly, someone riding a bicycle, or a group of friends laughing. You can mentally note these actions in English. Walk, ride, laugh. But if you are at home where there's not much happening, you can still practice thinking in verbs by imagining scenarios or using pictures. For instance, guys, look at a photo of a family picnic, okay, and what action do you see? Maybe they are eating, playing or relaxing, even when you are indoors. So you can practice identifying actions by thinking about what you might do in different situations. Imagine guys, you are in your kitchen, okay, you might be cooking, cleaning or washing dishes. So key practice tip, set aside 5 to 10 minutes each day to practice thinking in verbs. Pick a different places each day, okay, and focus on action happening around you. So as you do this regularly, you will train your brain to think about actions in English, and it's easier to describe what's happening in the moment, right? So now let's talk about the stage number 2, think in nouns. Naming the words around you. Once you have practiced thinking in verbs, it's time to move on to nouns. Nouns are words that name people, place, things, or ideas, just like verbs. Nouns are everywhere, everything around you, and you has a name. And if you can think of these name in English, you will be one step closer to thinking and speaking fluently, guys. So let's take an example from a different city. Imagine you are in Australia, standing by the famous, Sydney Opera House. As you look around, you see the building, the harbor, and many tourists taking photos. And you also see a boat in the water and a few seagulls flying above each of these. Okay, so the things is a noun. So each of these things is a noun: building, harbor, tourist, boat, seagulls. It's important to practice thinking in nouns. So whenever if you are at market in Delhi, India, you might see fruits, vegetables, spices, vendors. These all are nouns. So that describes the objects and people around you. Even if you are just sitting in your room, you can look around and identify nouns. For example, you might see a table, a chair, a book, a laptop, an AC. Another great way to practice thinking in nouns is to describe what you are carrying with you. So what's in your bag? Maybe you have a phone, some keys, and a wallet. If you practice naming these objects in English, it will soon sound natural over a time. So this will help you to think faster and more clearly in English. Key practice tip, okay? So spend a few minutes each day naming the objects around you in English, whether you are outside, at home, or even traveling. Challenge yourself to identify everything in English. For instance, if you are visiting somewhere and look around and name things like buildings, bicycles, cafes, and tourists. The more you practice this, right, the more your brain will automatically think in English. Now let's talk about the stage number 3. Stage number 3 is think in sentences. Connecting verbs and nouns. Once you are comfortable thinking in verbs and nouns, it's time to move on to the next step, guys. Because thinking in sentence, this is where you start putting verbs and nouns together to describe what's happening around you in a full sentence. Guys, at this stage, it's important to start simple. Okay, so don't worry about making long, complicated sentences. Just focus on creating short and clear sentences that describe what you see. For example, if you are in a Cape Town, South Africa, looking a table mountain, that you might say the tourists are climbing the mountain, the sun is shining, the wind is blowing. These are simple, but they allow you to practice thinking in complete sentences. So now let's imagine you are in Toronto, Canada, sitting in a park. What's happening around you? You could describe the scene like this is a family is having a picnic and the children are playing with a ball and the birds are flying in the sky. So these sentences are short, but they effectively describe what's happening around you. As you become more comfortable, you can start making your sentences longer. Okay, for instance, if you are in a Berlin, Germany, walking near the Brandenburg Gate, and you might say a group of tourists is taking pictures of the monument. Some of them are listening to their tour guide, and while others are checking their maps. So these sentences combines multiple verbs and nouns, giving a fuller description of the scene, right? The goal is here to get used to thinking in sentence instead of just words, right? So this will help you when you are speaking, as you won't have to stop and think about each individual word, your brain will automatically form sentences in English. So now, key practice tip here. Every day take 10 to 15 minutes to describe your surroundings in sentences. Whether you are at home, in the office or walking through a city, try to form complete sentences in your head and describe what's happening. If you are in a cafe in Rome, Italy, you might say the waiter is serving coffee. Two friends are chatting at the next table. A couple is reading a menu. So this practice will make thinking in English much more natural. Now let's talk about the stage number 4, think in paragraphs. Now guys, bringing it all together, the final stage is to move from thinking in sentences to thinking in paragraphs. This means describing everything around you in more details, telling a full story or creating a more vivid picture of the scene. Imagine you are visiting the Great Wall of China. Here you might describe it in a paragraph. I am standing on the Great Wall and the view is incredible. The mountains stretch out as far as I can see and the wall winds its way across the landscape. There are tourists all around and me taking pictures and walking along the wall. I can hear people speaking in different languages and there is a cool breeze blowing through the air. Are steep and the stone is warm from centuries of use in the paragraph. Now you have combined everything: verb, walking, speaking, noun, tourist, mountains, walls, and the sentences to create a full description of the scene. And guys, by practicing this, you start thinking in English more naturally, as you won't just be forming short sentences, you will be able to describe things in full details. So let's take another example, guys. Imagine you are walking through a bustling market in Istanbul, Turkey. You might describe the scene like this: the market is filled with people all busy shopping and bargaining with the vendors. I can smell the spices in the air and bright colors of the rugs and textiles catch my eye. A man is selling tea from a cart and a group of tourists are taking photos. The sounds of people talking and laughing fills the air and that atmosphere is lively and energetic. So when you practice thinking in paragraphs, guys, like this, you are training your brain to describe events, scenes in full detail without stopping to translate from your native language, right? So this stage is essential because it helps you not only think in English but also express your thoughts in English, okay, thoughts in a more coherent and fluent way by focusing on framing paragraphs. Why? You can talk more naturally and at length, which is key when you are aiming for fluency. Now guys, let's take one more example to practice. Okay, so imagine you are sitting in a cozy cafe in Amsterdam, Netherlands. Here how you might describe the scene in a paragraph. I'm sitting at a small table by the window, sipping my coffee. The cafe is warm and inviting with soft music playing in the background. Outside, I can see people riding their bicycles along the canal. The sky is cloudy and it looks like it might rain soon. A few people are reading books and a couple is chatting quietly over their breakfast by practicing, right? So by practicing thinking in a paragraph like this, you will develop the ability to describe more complex situations naturally and fluently in English. And guys, the smell of freshly baked bread fills the air and the atmosphere is calm and peaceful. So in this paragraph, you have combined of all the elements, verbs, nouns and sentences to create a vivid picture of the scene, right? So this is the final stage of thinking in English where you can describe situations in details, right? So just as you would in your native language take a few minutes to describe your day in a paragraph, you can start from the moment you wake up and think about everything that happened. So what did you do? Where did you go? And who did you meet? Try to describe it all in English. For instance, today was a busy day. I woke up early and went for a walk in the park, and the weather was, nice. I saw a lot of people exercising. After that, I had a breakfast at a small cafe. I ordered a cappuccino. Later, I went to work and had a meeting with my team. And guys, we discussed our new project, and everyone had great ideas in that evening. I met a friend for dinner at a restaurant, and we had a great time catching up and talking about our week. So this type of daily practice will not only help you to think in English, guys, but also improve your ability to recall and describe events in details. Putting it all together, achieving fluency through practice by now. Alright, so you should have a clear understanding of the 4 stages of thinking in English. Think in verbs, focus on actions, words, and describe what is happening around you. Think in nouns, name the people, places, and things you see in your surroundings. Think in sentences, combine verbs and nouns to form a short, simple sentences. Think in paragraph, guys, and bring everything together to create details, descriptions of scenes and event. So each of these stages build on the previous one, right? So helping you develop the ability to think directly in English without the need for translation. It's important to practice each stage regularly, as this will train your brain to process information in English more naturally, guys. Why? Because thinking in English is essential for fluency. Now that you understand the stage, and let's talk about why this method works. When you first start learning English, guys, you likely translate from your native language, right? And this is natural, but it creates a delay in your speaking instead of speaking smoothly, right? So you have to pause and think about what you say, right? What to say, which can make you feel less confident. By practicing thinking in English, you eliminate that translation step. Your thoughts will naturally form in English, making your speech faster and more fluid. So when you think in English, you will also find it easier to have conversations, express your ideas, and respond quickly in discussions. For instance, imagine you are at a job interview in India, right? And the interviewer asks you to describe a challenging situation you faced at work, right? So if you are thinking in your native language, you might need a moment to translate your thoughts into English. But if you have trained yourself to think in English, you can respond immediately and confidently without hesitation. The same goes for every day, right? Everyday conversations. Whether you are chatting with friends, giving a presentation, or even ordering food at a restaurant, being able to think in English will make the process much smoother, and practice exercise to help you to think in English. Now that you have learned the 4 stages here, guys, and here are some practical exercises that you can do to improve your ability to think in English daily. One observation: spend 10 to 15 minutes each day observing your surroundings and describing them in English, whether you are on the bus, at the park, or walking through your neighborhood. Or challenge yourself, right, to describe everything you see using verbs, nouns, and sentences, pictures, picture descriptions. Find a photo from a magazine, website, or your own photo album. Look at the picture closely and describe everything you see in English, right? For instance, if you are looking at a picture of a beach, you could say the sand is white and the water is crystal clear. There are few people swimming and some children are building a sand castle in the distance, right? So I can see a boat sailing on the horizon, right? Guys, write a journal at the end of each day. Write a short journal entry in English. Start by describing what you did that day, right? So where you went and who you met. As you practice, try to include more details in your description, right? And talk to yourself. If you don't have anyone to practice speaking English with you, so you can practice by talking to yourself. Pick a topic and try to talk about it for a few minutes, right? For instance, you could describe your favorite movie, explain how to make your favorite dish, or talk about your plans for the weekend, right? And then set a language challenge to yourself to think in English for a short period of time throughout the day. For example, set a timer for 5 minutes and commit to thinking only in English during that time. Gradually increase that time as you become more comfortable, right? Thoughts. The road to fluency learning to think in English is a journey, and it requires patience, guys, and practice. The more you engage with the language, the more natural it will feel to think, speak, and express yourself in English by following these 4 stages, right? Verbs, nouns, sentences, and paragraphs. So you will build a strong foundation for fluency, right? And guys, remember, the key to success is to consistency practice every day. So you should, even if it's just for a few minutes, and you will see improvement over a time, guys. And it's normal to make mistakes along the way, but don't let that discourage you. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn and grow, right? So, are you ready to take the next step on your English learning journey? Start practicing today, and soon you will be thinking in English like a native English speaker. Alright, guys. So guys, that's it for today's video, guys, and I think you liked the video, you enjoyed the video. If you like the video, please give thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe my channel. So thanks for watching. Bye bye, take care.